What is up, people? You are listening in to New Generation Hero Talk. I am your host, EJ Stewart. We got plenty to get to on today's show. We will be talking about the latest regarding the Batman in the DC universe. There's delays happening, a lot of confusion about when we're going to see either the Batman or Brave and the Bold. So we got a lot to talk about with that. We'll also be talking about some more Superman stuff. We did a lot of Superman stuff, obviously, last week coming off the trailer. We've now had some rumors about perhaps people who have seen the movie, and surprisingly enough, not the most positive reviews. So I want to talk about that as well. We're also at the end of the year here recording this episode on December 29th. So this will be almost certainly the last Hero Talk episode of the year. So we'll give you guys a look into next year. We'll give you guys a little bit of some of the highlights from this year. So this should be a fun show. Joining me are our co-hosts, starting with Shamari Stewart. Sham, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Glad to be, glad to be on the show as always. As you guys can see, I'm in person with Kendall here. So obviously enjoy spending time with him over the holidays, over this holiday break, and happy holidays to everyone, of course, listening and watching as well. It's good to be on the show. I'm looking forward to discussing the topics we got today. I mean, obviously some not so great news regarding the Batman, and I've spoken to Kendall about that a little bit. It's very discouraging, but we'll get to that. And we'll talk about some of the Superman stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like a shift that's happened over at DC. So I'm very curious to see what you guys feel about that. Kendall joined me as well. Kendall, big stuff happening, not just over at DC, also at Marvel. We had a couple weeks ago the exit of Nate Moore, who's a longtime Marvel producer, kind of the head producer behind a lot of the Black Panther projects that have come out. Of course, the movies. We have the Eye of Wakanda show that's coming out, but Nate Moore will be leaving Marvel Studios towards spring of next year. A little bit of a surprise move, but with everything that's been going on with the kind of the future of the Black Panther and people's discontent over Marvel as a whole, how did you make that news about Nate Moore's exit?
Yeah, I mean, so it was very interesting timing. My first thought was, what does this mean for Captain America: Brave New World? Because he was heavy on that project as well, and it was a disaster of a production, right? As much money as it's cost them to do reshoots and everything, and that hasn't come together as well as they may have hoped. Now, if it's a great movie, we'll let bygones be bygones. But if it's bad, sure, after having spent hundreds of millions of dollars just to make it, somebody's head will roll in that situation, and it's possible that was Nate Moore, but like you said, it's not only Captain America, but then obviously his large influence over the Black Panther story, along with him and Ryan Coogler kind of working in tandem. That obviously the universe is very much in flux right now because Marvel had a clear story that they set up, in Wakanda Forever that it wasn't super clear, but it was a kind of at least a broad thing of, all right, we're going to introduce this kid and Shuri's Black Panther and the movie was received, it was solid, but, it wasn't like it was obviously, critically acclaimed or anything like that. Fast forward now, where are we now? 2 years removed from that movie at this point, and the vibe around the Marvel fan base, the Black Panther fan base is a lot more negative in regards to the direction they're going, and a lot more apathy, I would say, at best for where they're going. And so there's a divide with what the fans want to see going forward, where Marvel was going allegedly. And, there is a very clear turning point. There's a very clear nexus point that Marvel has coming up with Secret Wars, which I believe is coming out in 2027.
Yeah.
That'll be the sign. We'll see if they take the page and turn it into, well, we're going to bring the T'Challa character back. Are we going to continue? Are we going to age up the kid, that they introduced, T'Challa Jr.? They've got a couple of different. Shuri's still going to be Black Panther. We don't know. They confirmed that they are making Black Panther 3. They announced it. Feige talked about it in regards to this Nate Moore announcement, but Denzel Washington revealed he's going to be in Black Panther 3. So we know it's happening. We know Coogler's doing it, it seems like. But like, when is that coming out? Who is Black Panther? Is Shuri still Black Panther? Probably, because they didn't write her off in the last movie. But like, will something happen in that movie that'll shift?
Yeah.
And will it come out before or after Secret Wars? Those are all massive questions being asked right now.
Yeah, they are. Now, according to Deadline, their sources saying that Moore will still produce that movie.
Right.
And the way it was kind of laid out was essentially that he's not going to be like an employee of Marvel Studios anymore, but he's going to work on other things beyond Marvel. But I guess this next Black Panther movie, he'll at least be a producer on it. But him being a high end producer over at Marvel, that those days appear to be over. And I do think it's interesting because that last Black Panther movie didn't hit the absolute like home run grand slam. I think that it probably needed to hit. I liked the movie. I think it was a really good movie, and I think a lot of people did like the movie, but it was not Black Panther 1, obviously. That has allowed, I think, for those who were frustrated with the lack of T'Challa's involvement, or the lack of a recasting, it allowed that groundswell, I think, to become louder, because there really wasn't a pushback from people being like, what they're doing is awesome and we should keep moving forward with this. So
Right.
I don't know if Nate Moore, if him being exited is as a direct result of like that decision, and this is them shifting and they're saying they don't want Namor a part of that, or is this more like you said, because Namor is not just Black Panther again, he was a key figure in this movie that's just coming out that you just mentioned, had a bunch of issues. Sorry, what'd you say?
Eternals as well,
and Eternals, which was we can talk all day and night about what happened with Eternals. It did not work. That was very clear.
Right.
Why it did not work, whether it was good, is not really a conversation we can get into because that'll take us, literally 2 hours. But
Yeah.
it's the things that he's kind of been tasked with have been tucked in controversy. And I think maybe this is them saying, look, for better or for worse, even if what you did was good or we liked it, it just didn't work out. So he's the guy that maybe gets the axe jam. So I'm curious to see kind of what this means for Black Panther. The fact that he's still involved. I wonder what that means. Is that just going to be a nominal status? Because we've seen this sham where like, I keep thinking about like Zack Snyder getting like producer creds on stuff that like he would then say, oh yeah, had nothing to do with that. Or, Josh Whedon getting producer credits on things that when he'd already been, boxed out. Like I'm wondering what this means for Namor, that he's been exited from Marvel, but he's quote unquote still producing Black Panther 3.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we don't know what his role in in this new Black Panther movie will actually be. Yes, it's very unclear. It could have just been kind of, as you alluded to, could have just been kind of like an exit gift, like, hey, yeah, we'll put your name on it kind of thing. But, maybe he shows up every now and then, make sure things are stable, but doesn't have too much input.
That was a world he helped create, right? Like, none of these other characters, obviously Marvel, besides maybe Eternals, obviously, which I don't expect to see anything from anytime soon. But, like, when it comes to Black Panther, him and Coogler work in tandem, but I'm sure obviously a lot of other people, including Kevin Feige, to help create that world.
Yeah.
And it may be tough for them to do Black Panther 3. I'm assuming it's going to take place in the same world to some extent. It may be tough for them to do it without him at least being semi-involved.
Right. I mean, it ultimately would be up to whoever is creatively in charge of Black Panther 3.
Right.
Whether that's Ryan Coogler, who you would think it would be, whoever is writing the movie. Do we know who the writers are?
I believe it's Coogler.
Okay, Coogler has written the script before with others.
So you would think that Ryan Coogler would be the one making those decisions.
Right.
At least I don't believe there's anything out there indicating that they are not getting along, or that they are not on good terms or anything like that.
Right.
So I would think Namor can still have some kind of impact if he wants, but even from his perspective, with him having been let go, I mean, who knows how much impact he even wants, really, at this point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think this is. I would imagine even the people working on the project are. I wouldn't necessarily see him as, say, a lame duck, but he's someone that's there, but like he's on the way out.
They
So
may all be, for being frank. I mean,
I
yeah,
was
I
about to
mean,
say.
the trilogy, once the trilogy's over, that is also a very clear turning point as well that they could take, where they say, "Oh, we'll let you guys do 3 movies, let Coogler do a third, and then that's where we're gonna spin it and do a complete remix of it."
To me, I would love to see. I don't know what's gonna happen with might as well get the drop ready. I'm not sure what's gonna happen with the X-Men, but I would love to see Coogler actually get moved off of Black Panther and do something with X-Men characters. I'm not saying it has to be the X-Men movie for sure. Not saying that at all, but he has
That's
these. How we say?
No, I was going to say that's there were rumors like a year
Yeah,
ago,
I
year
think
and a
I
half
vaguely
ago
remember that.
that Nate Moore was going to be involved with the X-Men, and that
Right,
was he was kind of being moved off some of the stuff so that he'd be in charge of the X-Men stuff, and that the assumption was, well, then Coogler would probably be involved
right.
in it
I
as
remember
well.
that.
And again, this is kind of a fall from grace in the Marvel sense, because it's like you go from that to like now you're just out of the company entirely. But it doesn't mean that necessarily the idea of Coogler working with the X-Men is off the board.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's what I would like to see, but they're in a weird spot, man. And like I was thinking about this as we were talking, because we're doing so much guessing with Marvel at this point, where people are getting fired, and we literally don't really know what it means. Like we're trying to piece together. Well, this guy worked on this, and he worked on this stuff. I think we all kind of agree. Okay, the things he's been a part of, like I said earlier, have been mired with some level of controversy. I would not at all feel like that he's the reason why Marvel's been in this funk per se, but it would appear that the things he's been involved in have at least attributed to that. And maybe this is them saying, "All right, time for you to go." But who knows? It could be a various number of reasons. I do feel like they're in a tough box. When they announced that they were not going to recast T'Challa, I said from the beginning that I supported the announcement, and I also did not believe them. I was like, I don't think they should be announcing any recasting anytime soon, and that T'Challa's gonna be back, because that just is common sense. It feels like, though, with where they are now that Nate's gone, they're gonna be in a weird spot in terms of how, because if they are pivoting from saying, okay, we need to find a way to age this kid up or do whatever, well, they've put themselves in a box with from a story standpoint, that could get very weird. Because how are you going to age up this kid where it's not goofy? If you're deciding, okay, we're going to change our minds, we are going to recast the original T'Challa, which I just don't think is on the board. I don't know how you really do that. Um, I guess maybe you could revive him somehow. I don't know. It just feels very weird how you would do that. I That becomes goofy. Like every avenue becomes goofy, and I think it was because the announcement of we're never going to bring him back was silly. That they went too far. Like they could have said, we're not uh,
In
we
this
have no
moment,
plan.
we're
We
not
have no plans at this moment in
right.
time to recast T'Challa, and everybody. I'm not. Let me be clear. Everybody would not have agreed with that. But I think that would have not allowed them to be in the box they are now, where it's like, well, we said he's never coming back, even though I think deep down they knew he was coming back, and then the plan they had for him to come back is now, because it wasn't as well received as they thought. Now they're in a position where we have to like speed this up and do something extremely goofy. So I'm a little worried about Black Panther, to be honest, because now we're in a situation where I don't know if whatever the story they were going to tell, I had confidence in that they could have done. If that's being changed in any major way, that could end up becoming real tricky with how they quote unquote fix whatever they're trying to do, whatever they feel Nate may have broken. That's kind of how I feel about it.
yeah, no, I mean, I think they're definitely in a bind. I mean, this Nate Moore firing is just kind of just they were already in a bind, but this just kind of makes things even, as you mentioned, even more kind of confusing as to what the plans are. If there was a plan, is that still the plan going forward? Is Nate
Yeah.
Moore being gone going to affect? Does that have any effect on anything? So yeah, I don't.
And what I
I
was
don't
thinking,
know.
That,
I
that
mean,
that's
Yeah,
That's why the idea of like a reset that we've heard in regards to, we've heard it more so in terms of the X-Men, that their plan may be to create a world where the X-Men have always been there, and the mutants have always been there, and it's a reset of the MCU that somehow will bring Iron Man back, will bring Cap back, and Black Widow may be back, and in that world, do you just bring T'Challa back, and you just say, yeah, T'Challa's Black Panther again, but now the X-Men are here, the Fantastic Four are in this world, like that seems to be, I think, the direction that they may be going.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Right, and I think that that's the cleanest way. Now, look, that's the cleanest way to bring him back as a character without making it, like you said, some cockamamie, thing that's so specific to, we got to go from Earth 245, bring him over. It's Michael B. Jordan's playing him. We don't need anything ridiculous. But like, if you do it where all these characters are coming in at once, it's not so specific to him. And there are some issues with that in general, right? Like, we don't know what the history of these characters are. You're gonna have to go back and kind of explain things. But that's the case with every movie, right? We're gonna watch Superman. We're not gonna know everything about everything Superman's done or every villain he's fought, right? So,
yeah, no, I agree. I would tend to think that is basically what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the best course of action at this point.
The question is it going to be the kid, or is it going to be? Or are they just going to bring back?
I don't know.
Son of T'Challa.
I've been pretty consistent in that. I think they should. I think they should be T'Challa. I think they should have recast from the beginning and so on. But I don't know. I think what's most important is that we have a Black Panther. I think the easiest way to get a Black Panther that is reminiscent of or a continuation of the Black Panther that we got in Black Panther 1 is to have it be T'Challa and not the kid.
Right.
Because I think aging up the kid very rapidly is just very I don't know. I think it would just be very odd.
Right.
It would just be very odd, very off-putting, particularly to people that want to see more of T'Challa. So then you're splitting up the fan base more in that sense.
Now I will say I would be very surprised if this kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week, right? We don't know how they're going to do it, but let's say Storm is a little bit younger based off of the casting. If Storm's a little bit younger, that may line up with and I would be shocked. It's not impossible, but I would be shocked if Storm's not involved with the Black Panther story in some way. Now that gives them a perfect opportunity. She might be in this movie, that we're talking about. Is that to line up with the kid's age? Because the kid's super young, but you could still age him up somehow.
That kid was like really young.
Yeah, he's super young.
Yeah,
there would be something.
He might have been like 6 years old, 7 years old. Yeah,
that was gonna have to be.
Yeah, that was why I actually didn't really dislike the idea of the kid, because I felt like because there seemed to be no future involving when the X-Men were coming around. I'm like, well, by the time he's like of age, like he could be running around with a young Storm, and like I thought that actually made some sense. But again, now that the plans have been all screwed up now, and the timelines now maybe screwed up now, but that doesn't make sense anymore. But that was one of the main reasons why I enjoyed that, because I felt like I did enjoy the fact that we had the child that just, there was no origin, he just showed up and he was just here and he was dope. I did kind of like, well, this is your chance to now actually show like an origin story about the Black Panther, and it could be pretty much exactly the same as any other T'Challa story, because there's no reason to really change many things except for, okay, his dad's not T'Chaka, it's T'Challa. I didn't think it really made much of a difference. So that was why I supported it, and I think that's why a lot of people thought it could work. But with this, all the stuff we're talking about, it's going to make it very tricky. This does, though, lead me, I want to get into this Batman stuff, but it does lead me to one thing that I think is clear. And there's some more Marvel stuff I'm going to kind of sneak in this show as well. But Kevin needs to find somebody and talk to. I don't know. Like, look, Kevin, if you want to come here, the floor is always open, obviously. But assuming it won't be here, he needs to find a John Roca, Campia, Harloff,
Josh Harlow.
Brandon Davis.
Yeah.
He needs to find and needs to give them an hour, because I think the amount of the lack of confidence that people have right now that he's going to be able to accomplish. I'm reading stories today. Okay, we can't get to everything today, but I'm reading stories that he don't like the Spider-Man script, the script that Tom Holland actually liked. So now they got to redo the Spider-Man script. It just feels like this guy needs to sit down and talk to people. Say, hey,
Yeah, EJ.
what is going on? And he can't give us the platitudes and the nonsense he normally gives us. Quite frankly, he needs to do a
EJ,
real podcast and sit down with somebody.
yeah, EJ. Even as we were discussing this topic, I'm just thinking in my head like this is such a mess.
Yeah.
This is so messy. Like
This sounds like DC in that Jeff Johns era. This is what
yes,
this feels like. It feels like we were talking about the Jeff Johns. Whenever he had that Jeff Johns, that combination of people they had running everything for that like year
right.
or whatever it was before they fired all of them and then brought in Hamada. Like this is what this feels like for Marvel. It feels like we're combining ideas. We're hiring this person, firing that person, and we're trying to it feels very uneven. And during that time, I thought Warner. One of the things we kept saying was Warner was extremely terrible at PR at that time. Like that was one of the things we talked about all the time on the show, is that these folks like don't get it. Like they're announcing things and saying things are coming, and they don't have a plan for them. They don't have a script for them. They don't seem to know what's going on. They want to try to continue some of Zack Snyder stuff, but not everything. They want to change the whole landscape of what people liked about the Snyder stuff. His fans, this is what this feels like. And that's what I feel. That's why I'm like, Kevin needs to really sit down and talk to people and say, like, hey, what exactly is going on? Because he's letting all of us fill the blanks, and the blanks don't sound good. The blanks sound very confusing, very haphazard, and that's, I think, one of my main things.
And you allow the narrative to get out of control, because
Right.
at the end of the day, we're speculating, and a lot of people are speculating, what are they going to do with Black Panther 3? Are they going to age up the kid? Are they going to bring Michael B. Jordan in from another world where he's actually T'Challa? Are they going to just do a complete recast? And like a lot of these options, people aren't even excited about, and we don't even know if that's what they're going to do. I mean, we can only go off of either rumors and leaks, or we're going off of what they actually have shown us, which is they showed us the kid and Shuri, but otherwise people are just making. I mean, I don't know if they're making it up, but like nothing that we're hearing is necessarily coming from Marvel. But you allow the narrative to get taken out of control when there's no way all this stuff can be true. Some of this stuff is false, or some of this stuff is not happening.
Yeah,
But
and we see James Gunn do it all the time. He will just come out and go on Twitter and say, what you just said is not true. And
right,
I don't know why Feige, I'm not saying he has to take the route that Gunn takes, but why he can't find a way to get stuff out there saying that's not happening. This is why we're doing this, X, Y, and Z. He doesn't do it at all. And last thing I will say on that, Kendall, is Kevin Feige's silence is writing checks that his movies can no longer cash.
yep,
Nope.
Like there was a time when that silence was, we just took it at face value, because guess what? We were getting Civil War, we were getting Homecoming, we were getting, the
right,
Black Panther, we were getting bangers. So it's like, why am I going to complain about him not talking? It's like Kendrick Lamar, literally. Like Kendrick Lamar doesn't talk to anybody. It's like, why am I going to? And some people say, well, Kendrick Lamar needs to talk more to get more people to understand kind of who he is. Why would he need to talk more when what he's doing his work? What do I need to hear from him? I'm hearing what I need from the actual projects. When the projects don't hit anymore, then you need to do other things to get us to instill further belief in you. And right now, I feel like that's the problem. Is there was a time when that silence was like, well, watch the next movie and you'll see why I was silent and why you're going to get paid off. And he was right. That's not the case anymore. And I think that's a big issue. But I do want to move over to DC. And I feel like I said before, there's a lot of positivity coming out of DC last week. And I've been the one banging the drum as hard as anybody about how excited I am. And then this week happened. I feel like this is probably James Gunn's worst week at DCU. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's how I feel. And let's begin with the Batman stuff. So it may be a long time before we get a return to the big screen for Batman, because the sequel to Matt Reeves' The Batman has been pushed back to now October of 2027. This is now, I believe, the second official delay of this film by a year. That would mean that there will be a 5-year gap between the first Robert Pattinson-led Batman movie and its successor. DC Studio CEO James Gunn is attributing delay to the script not being fully ready, but says Matt Reeves is still committed to making the best movie possible. The Pattinson version of The Dark Knight is not expected to be a part of James Gunn's DCU, which made it even more strange that then we saw a recent interview with director Andy Muschietti, who said on a podcast that his Batman and Robin movie, Brave and the Bold, was also postponed. And that he had actually been shifting focus to other projects because that movie was not going to be coming out anytime soon. That led people to kind of just, again, with James Gunn and how he operates, this is maybe the downside to this. People being able to just tweet at James Gunn like, hey, bro, like, what the F? And this is actually on Blue Sky, so it wasn't a tweet. It was a Blue Sky post, I guess. I don't know what they call it over there. But then James Gunn, when the person talked about the fact that the Brave and the Bold was delayed, James Gunn denied that there were any delays with the film, which is obviously now in direct conflict of what Muschietti said. So this, guys, kind of led to a lot of speculation, like the most speculation about what the hell is going on. So to be sensitive to some stuff, there have been several folks. I saw My Time to Shine tweet this. We've seen other kind of allude to this. Matt Reeves may be going through something personally. I don't know what that could be. Obviously, whatever it is, he should have the grace to deal with that personally. And I hope whatever's going on with him, he's okay and his family's okay, because that's obviously the most important thing after all the movies, right? So there's that aspect of it as to why maybe there is no script and why this movie has been pushed back. There is also rumors, I think better to say than reports, that James Gunn is still working Matt Reeves to try to get the Pattinson-led movies into his DCU. That, in some ways, would kind of maybe make sense as to why Muschietti is talking about his movie being postponed, even though James Gunn's saying that that's not the case, or at least that it's not delayed, was the conversation he had on Blue Sky. So there's that aspect to this. There's also just this plain aspect to, like, what is the kind of motivation to continue the Batman universe, and what is Matt Reeves' urgency to move forward with the Batman universe that he created, given Matt Reeves is a slow writer, essentially. And is this a viable thing to have him making movies every 5 years? Like, what people are saying is that Robert, and it's not people saying, it's a fact, Pattinson's going to be 41, I believe, the next time the Batman 2 comes out. So I leave all that to you, Sham, to say, like, what do you think? Yeah, go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, by the way, just on that note of his age, I thought this was fake, right? Because, like, there was a tweet. It looked like it was from Culture Crave, the Twitter account.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out it was from it was like a Ball Sack Sports one where it was culture fake, right? And the tweet, it caught me because I saw the tweet. I didn't believe it. It was like, Robert Pattinson is going to be nearly the same age when Batman 2 comes out that Ben Affleck was in BVS. And Ben Affleck was playing a retired Batman. And this is supposed to be, Pattinson's supposed to be Batman in his early years. And I was like, oh, I got caught. This is a ball sack. It's not true. And then I looked it up. I was like, no, Affleck was 44. And it was like they were being legit. They were just making a mockery of the situation. But and look, Affleck obviously has been around for so long that you think that he would have been older at that point. But like, that's just to highlight the ridiculousness of the fact that it's taking them so long to make this thing.
Yeah, I mean, and we can just get into it. I mean, I feel like, to me, this is terrible. I mean, there's no really way to sugarcoat this. Now, again, if Matt Reeves is going through something, he's going through something, right? Like, yeah, I'm not here to talk about that. Like, I hope everything goes well for him. In regards to just, like, the health of, A, the Batman universe, and B, just the health of DC Studios as they move into this next era, this is the one thing that will absolutely derail all the things that James Gunn, the Goodwill James Gunn, is trying to create, right? Like, I feel like things have been going really well before this week. People are very excited. I really enjoy Creature Commandos. I've been watching that show, and I think they've done a good job with that so far. If you F up Batman, like, you're dead on arrival. Like, let's just make that clear. Like, you cannot survive that. It's almost unlike Marvel, where Marvel really Spider-Man's probably they don't even have Spider-Man. He's like the one person you
Yeah,
probably
they
say
don't. There's
they
not a character like that for
they
them.
can't screw up. It's very weird with Marvel. DC is not like that. DC has two characters that you cannot screw up. They have two characters that are probably still more iconic than any character Marvel has. So the fact that we'll get to Superman later, but the fact that there was this many issues with Batman this early on is very alarming. Now, if this is a situation where you're trying to get James Pattinson's Pattinson Batman into your universe, that's interesting. It's not something I particularly needed. I was totally fine with having two Batman. I was like, okay, fine. I didn't like the idea that the Batman was going to be 15 years older than Superman, but that's another story. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I like what they're doing with the Batman. Like, I think that's a cool story. Like, I see no reason for me, in terms of me being the super fan, why I can't follow both. Um, if it's taking you 5 years to get to that point, you better have a great stories and great ideas on how to put that together. But if that's not the result of this, and we're just in a 5 year holding pattern for this movie, that's to me, that's very concerning, Sham. I don't know. I couldn't really guess what's going on. James Gunn, to his credit, and to Matt Reeves' credit, well, they're both this way. He's very much the kind of adamant on the fact that if you don't have a script, you don't have a movie, which is what should be the case. Like Kevin Feige's effed
Right.
that up clearly way too often over the last 5 years. So I have no beef with that being his stance. I do have a beef though with a movie being announced. Okay, there's no script, so therefore we just keep pushing back a movie that is so important. Um, but because right now we don't have anything tangible regarding what Gunn wants to do with Batman. If we had, all right, Batman's delayed, but don't worry, we're doing Brave and the Bold. We got our concept. Like that's a to me, that's a very the Brave and the Bold is probably of all the things he's been pitching, probably the one thing that's been most kind of controversial in terms of how people feel about this idea. And that's the one thing you don't like. You're not buttoned up on. The director's saying the movie's postponed. You're saying, well, no, it's not delayed. But we know a movie can be delayed if it hasn't been greenlit. So, so to me, like it's almost like you're meant to. It's almost like a words game, Sham, that they're kind of playing with delayed and postponed. It don't sound like the movie's coming out clearly, at least not anytime soon. So I say all that to say, Sham, what the hell do you think is going on right now?
Yeah. No, I mean it's bad news. You know, it is yeah, it's really it's just not what fans want to hear, you know, and it's now a lot of this unfortunately um and I didn't even know that Matt Reeves was going through some kind of hardship, but
And I want to be clear; those are rumors. I don't want to,
or
Speculation.
just
yeah, it's
speculation,
just
that may
speculation.
be the case.
Yeah, there's been some again. I would go twice even say rumors.
Right.
There are people in the inside that have kind of been hinting at that.
Right, right.
If that is the case, something that's entirely out of our control, as you said, EJ, obviously we would be understanding and sympathetic to that. And,
Yes.
he should take as much time as he needs. And if that is the case, I'm glad Gunn is not kicking him off or anything like that. He's just, we want you to work on this project. We know you want to work on this project. We'll push it back as long as we need to give you time to deal with whatever you have to deal
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
So, I'm glad that is an opportunity that's afforded to him. But it's just, unfortunately, it's just one of those things where fans basically are fans of his work are the ones that are, I wouldn't say suffering, but we're just kind of less like, well, now we don't have Batman because this guy this is his brainchild. This is what he works on. He's not creating content. So there's not much that we can really do about that. If the Pattinson, um, if it's if this is more of an issue of Pattinson not being in the universe, if that is more the issue or the only issue, then I would have hoped that maybe they could, if they did want to push it back at all, that maybe it wouldn't need to be a whole year. Just to try to achieve something like that. If if that was the reason in any way. Now, Batman: The Brave and the Bold. I'm not. When was that supposed to come out? Because
I mean, he never really had a
There's
date.
no
did
release
we
date.
know?
There's no
Yeah,
release
never really
date.
had a date. He just announced
So-
it as part of the slate.
I wasn't expecting that to come out anytime soon, particularly anyway. And the story for that, I wouldn't have expected to have been really developed to the point where they would start filming anytime soon.
They
So
announced
that's something that I wouldn't have expected them to work on, like this year or next year. Anyway,
they announced that in 2023, I believe, right?
sure.
Yeah. You know, if I told you that movie was scheduled to come out at the time, it's come out in 2028. Do we still think it's coming out in 2028? I don't think so.
What we're in 2020, we're about to enter 2025 right now. I mean,
About that 2025.
it don't feel that way.
Batman's coming out October of 2027. The Batman 2, allegedly. I mean, it could.
Yeah,
if they
I
get
mean,
the
I
ball
would, I
rolling.
wouldn't, I don't know, I wouldn't rule it out. I have to look. I know they have a bunch of there's so many different projects,
Right.
because I know they're doing this Teen Titans thing, which I saw. You know,
Now, we got a
We're getting
Clayface
stuff
movie. We got a
for
Clayface
that.
movie coming out before we got Batman.
we got
Yeah,
the Lanterns thing coming out
Yeah.
On Max. So, I mean, we have a lot of
James
stuff
Gunn,
coming out.
I think
Say it, Kendall. I know what you're gonna say. I feel the same way.
James Gunn's priorities with some of these projects is all out of whack.
I agree.
I think he's got ideas for things, just like he had an idea for the Guardians of the Galaxy that worked tremendously. He had an idea for the Suicide Squad that worked tremendously. He had an idea for Peacemaker and Creature Commandos. Those have worked. But when it comes to this DCU, I thought he had the right mentality, being like, I'm taking over DC and I'm making my Superman movie. That's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to do it. We're going to get it right. And then we'll branch out from there. And he came out with the slate, and there were some weird things in there. There was some good stuff. A Lantern show, which we had been talking about for, about a decade at this point. And we had, obviously the Brave and the Bold was something that we didn't know if we needed because we already had Batman. But it's like, look, you can't have a universe without Batman. So, Batman, Brave and the Bold. But then it was like, Supergirl was like, okay, all right, Supergirl is coming off of Superman, branch it out. That can make sense. And then we were hearing they're doing Swamp Thing, and I'm like, really? Swamp Thing in your first, slate of movies? And now they just, this past week, they're announcing, we're doing Clayface coming out in 2026, and we have a release date. And I'm like, is Clayface coming out before you have a Batman movie? Is this Clayface now, again, I haven't caught up in Creature Commandos, but I believe he was in the show. So
That's accurate.
Guessing that's the same guy. I don't know. I got to watch it, but where's Batman? Where's Batman in any of this?
I just lay here by the way, guys, before you continue, Jim. Okay. So they announced 10 projects that's part of the Gods and Monsters Chapter 1 in James Gunn's DCU. It included Superman, directed written by James Gunn, The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Swamp Thing as films. Television shows that was going to be on Max included Creature Commandos, which we're watching right now, Waller, Booster Gold, Lanterns, and Paradise Lost, which is set in Themyscira. It's a drama about the Themyscirians.
And his
I'll
let you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my only so I feel kind of two ways about what you just said, Kendall. So the thing that one additional thing that you didn't mention that also kind of leads me to agree with you, and we discussed this when news was coming out about the Superman movie, is that I still don't like necessarily that he added all these other people into the Superman movie, which, I know you guys, either like it or don't really care about it. I think he should have just focused on Superman,
right? In
terms of like you were kind of saying, keeping priorities. Like, I want Superman. Superman has a good rogues gallery. Right. There's plenty of people you could have thrown in. You don't have to make this a Justice League light almost kind of movie.
Marvel could have did that with Iron Man, right? Like,
he could have threw in a bunch of other people. Up. But there's no need. Superman alone as a story, and I know we've seen obviously several different Superman movies already, but I just didn't think that was necessary. So I do see what you're saying when it comes to him kind of having all these ideas and all these things that he wants to do, but sometimes it's like kind of
Right.
it's better to simplify. The one thing again for this situation is just I feel like this Batman thing specifically, depending on if this is a Reeves personal issue,
Right. It could be
that's
things out of their control.
That's out of his
I mean,
control.
the
So
Hollywood.
I feel bad like kind of pushing on him.
Yeah, the writer's strike is the first delay, right? It was supposed to come out in October 2025. Right. We had the writer's strike. It was unfortunate that they had the delay like that, but it's out of their control. I don't think they wanted to have to push back a year, but they did. Now October 2026 is the date, and again, who knows what the circumstances are? But like you said, if it's something personal with Matt Reeves, that may have been out of their control as well.
Again, I think the Reeves Batman that we got should have just been the Batman from the get go. Right. I don't think we needed.
It seems like
Batman braving the bolt anyway.
In addition to what EJ's saying about Gunn maybe continue to try and work that angle, there have been also rumors that Pattinson wants to be involved in it as well, and that Pattinson wants to be involved in the Gunn universe. That Gunn wants Pattinson involved in the Gunn universe, but that it may be Reeves that is the one most trepidatious about it. And we have also heard rumors that Zaslav wants it, right? So at a certain point, it's like Reeves, man. Yeah. It's like I don't know narratively, creatively what
they really should just be like, name your price. Like, what do you want?
Right?
Do you want it, or even if the price is creative control over everything in Gotham City? Even if that's the price.
That's what it seems like.
Gunn should be like, listen, okay, if I'm doing anything in Gotham, anything regarding anything Batman,
right? Similar to how
you
Marvel
are the point person,
right?
not me.
Like Marvel has had it set up where Gunn was that guy from a cosmics perspective, right? If we're going out in space, sure. Maybe not Captain Marvel, but with anything Guardians related, any of those characters, right. Thanos, you're going to be involved. We're not gonna involve you.
It's like Coogler involved with anything with Black Panther, like
with Wakanda, right?
Like those guys, like they were producers on Infinity
you created
War
this world
because they were those characters were integral in Infinity War. So
right,
so yeah,
and the stuff. While obviously Marvel was not so distinct with how things looked, like Wakanda was going to be different than the rest of it. Was going to be different in New York. Yes. The world they created. The world Gunn created in space was going to be different than, Hell's Kitchen, but with DC, their concern, I think, and with, at least Matt Reeves' is concerned, is that the Gotham he created it was very hyper-realistic. Mm-hmm. And how is that going to jive with what we've seen in the DCU, where they want to go? I mean, again, creatively is one thing, but it's going to be tough if all the major power brokers see the vision of that character in that universe.
The one thing I will say too, in terms of putting this movie together, Matt Reeves is an amazing story writer. We all know that, but we now know Matt Reeves. He's almost like how do I put this? He's almost like Kyle Shanahan. Like we've now seen he can put together incredible staffs. So like he co-wrote the script of the Batman with Peter Craig. We just watched a Penguin show that he developed that a lot of scripts written by Lauren LaFranc. I say that to say it feels like is he taking this all on his own? Like if there is an issue, is there any way these other people that I think we all trust as great story writers, can they help advance the story to a point? I guess I'm losing focus as to again, beyond a personal issue, like it feels like there are other folks who should be able to help in those situations if that is the case. And even if it's not the case, I feel like there are other folks who could also help push this story along if he's in a writing rut, which happens to people, man. Like people lose confidence, people lose whatever. I just feel like it's weird to be in a spot where you're able to, again, green light a sequel and say, well, I got plans for this. And then we're, 2 years beyond, when that movie came out. Like, I'm being real. Like, I work at, Infinity Sports Network right now. I've been there for, I think, about 3 years now, which is kind of crazy. I was at New York 1 when the Batman was being filmed. Like, I was, when I was getting sourcing about that movie being, and, about that movie when it was shooting and stuff, I was at New York 1. That was a long time ago now. Like, it's just in my personal life, it feels like a different era of EJ. So the fact that we're from that point, like, how many did you like? I kind of wonder. Just to me, I guess what I'm getting at is it just feels like maybe this movie was greenlit without really any plan for a sequel. When we talk about lack of focus, he had a lot of plans for the GCPD show, the Penguin show, which was phenomenal. There's no, I'm happy he
Arkham.
did it. But Arkham Asylum and all these different, we had all these other like side projects he had plans for. Part of me just wonders, like, was there ever really a true plan for a sequel for the Batman?
If there was,
I'm starting to doubt that
I
there
mean, we
was. I'm being
know.
real. I think maybe he had plans for what he wanted to do beyond just that movie, clearly, and we've seen it executed. I don't know if he had plans beyond that, because
I
we
mean,
even think about the Penguin show. It happens. It literally takes place only just
right
weeks
after.
after the Batman.
Yeah.
So like we're talking about advancing to a whole nother movie, which you're gonna think probably would advance to at least a year beyond when we just
Right.
saw. I'm not starting to have doubts that he really had plans that more forward. They just were.
Formalized. Right. No, I
They
mean
just were
your
so
point.
excited about what they saw. They said, "Eff it, we're just going to green like this." And this is prior to James Gunn being around.
Your
And
point
yeah,
is valid. I mean, I assumed, I think we all assumed that they had this grand plan for a sequel and then a trilogy, and this was all going to work out. But if that was the case, the only reason why that's sometimes in some ways hard to believe is if that was the case, we would know about it. You know, like maybe the movie would be out by now, but beyond that, like we would at least we would at the very least know something about it.
we
Right
know
now, we know
nothing
nothing.
about this movie. We don't know a
You
villain.
know, yeah.
We don't know
People are
about
just
people that
speculating.
got to come back. We don't know anything about this next movie. And I
And
agree,
that
Ken. I think that should tell you that, like, yeah, how much further along was this second movie? The last movie, there is no. I mean, there's nothing in that movie that suggests what the next story is. Zero.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just Gotham's flooded. Batman doesn't follow Catwoman to Bloodhaven.
yeah.
He
We had
goes back to
the thing
Gotham.
We
with
had the thing with the Joker.
we had the thing with Joker, but it's not, everything we've heard is that ain't going to be the second movie.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. Is that's not.
That's a long game that they're playing. And I'm like, a long game? We're getting that in 2035?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at this pace, to me, that's the catastrophic nature of this. To me, it's the delay, the factors of why the delay is happening. You know, again, I can't speak to it. I mean, before I didn't know that as well. I was like Shamari. I just assumed that they just been spinning their wheels a little bit in terms of maybe Matt Reeves dealing with something. Because before, my initial reaction when I saw this, and it was like James Gunn had his thing of like, we gotta wait till the script's done. I'm like, well, then finish the script. What's taking you so long? Like, that was my initial reaction. Right. But if there's something going on, I can't. I mean, obviously, the script's not going to be done. I mean, it's a tough situation for them to deal with. But again, beyond, there's nobody to point fingers at or be mad at right now. But but just to speak to the catastrophic nature of what this does for DC, it's absolutely. I mean, you're right, EJ. This is the worst case scenario. A year is a long time in this game right now because they had it planned out that we were going to get Superman and then the Batman Part 2 in 2025, literally 3 months from each other. And
which
now,
if in its original instance would have been maybe a knockout blow to anything Marvel.
That's what we kept saying. We were like, Marvel.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, it's about to be a wrap for Marvel.
Yeah, that was a really scary proposition for Kevin Feige. And now we're in a world where we got only that Superman movie for them in 2025. And again, now their next priority seems to be Supergirl, which, it could be good. There's a certain level for me of what's the ceiling. I don't think that the ceiling, as Michael Jordan would say, the ceiling is the roof. Like, I don't think that that movie is going to be ever anything that's going to be like, that's going to go toe to toe with as like a face of your franchise type of movie. It could be a big deal. And I think that's a character that could transcend.
I don't know, man. I think Supergirl could be. I think Supergirl could be really good. That's just my
right
speculation. I'm a bit of a convert. I very much enjoy going through things like the Injustice 2 storyline in the game, which is very Supergirl centric.
Right. Supergirl's an awesome character, and
she's a great she's a great character. I was like, man, this is a really, really cool story.
The story there.
She's a good character.
Yeah, then the story they're
So
adopting, which is Women of Tomorrow, was written by Tom King. I started reading it last year. Um, it's very fascinating. I feel like it's very think of Thor Ragnarok, but with a little with way more edge. Like that's kind of what you're going for. It's not anything like a Supergirl story. I feel like you would probably go to expect, which is a bold choice in my opinion. But I kind of appreciate the big swing, especially if it sounds like the Superman movie. We'll get to Superman in a second. Um, maybe more. I don't mean this as a this, but maybe more cookie cutter what you expect from Superman. And I think that actually is a good thing. I think that's what a lot of people want. This is not going to be that. So, but I do get Kelly's point where it's like I think the fact that they are kind of taking this big swing in some ways does kind of limit the potential for it kind of being enjoyed by everybody. And that's a reality. I just
Even Lanterns feels like as good as that of a show that could be. Look, it's a series. Like, what's the overall upside of this Lantern show when they're doing kind of the true detective, kind of
well,
dark,
the only thing I'll
gritty?
push back on Kendall is we could say that, but we just I mean I know it's not part of DCU, but we just watched the Penguin. So I would say
We just watched the Penguin. Penguin
the
was awesome.
ceiling. I think the ceiling is it could be the greatest thing we've ever seen.
Now,
I mean,
look, TV, like,
Penguin was
yeah,
amazing.
the series could be great, right?
Yeah,
And even the reach could be wide ranging. But I don't know. I mean, look, if the show is great, like Aaron Pierre could be like could be a guy that, yeah, we're building around when we do our Justice League, people are going to want to see Aaron Pierre like on a bigger stage than when we saw him in this show.
yeah,
That's very possible, but I'm like, and look, the Batman. I guess this isn't even specifically for DCU. You know, this was just the DC Warner Brothers and DC. Like, the Batman was like that was your linchpin. That was your we don't know what we got with Superman, but we know we got in Batman. Like, that's gonna be great.
right, yeah,
And then
yeah,
we had Penguin, and then it was like, all right, now we're definitely straight. Like, Batman, that's fine. Well, if we don't have Batman, and now everything's all in flux, now their portfolio is a lot shakier. And I mean, we're going to talk
yeah.
about Superman, but I mean, not a lot of pressure is put on that movie.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, for me, I don't know how you guys feel. I personally, I don't think I want the Batman of our Pattinson in this universe. I just feel I don't know. Maybe I kind of like the idea that they were going to do a Batman has a Robin that we have because to me with Batman his story and his world is so amazing. I hate when sometimes I hate having to start from the beginning and like being the early cert like say no that's not just the Batman. I really like that movie, but I did like the concept of okay we're starting in DCU where the main focus that they're trying to get across to people is that super powered people and aliens and monsters and all this they just exist. This is part of this world. Everyone understands that. Great. And if you start a Batman world with that, that means great. He has now they're going to start with Damian Wayne, not what I would have done, but whatever. All right, he has a son. He's Robin. Maybe he's had multiple Robins. Maybe he's had a Batgirl. Like it just to me the potential for like what that means for the larger Batman world, which I think a lot of people really enjoy. You guys know I'm a huge Nightwing fan, but Tim Drake has his fans. Jason Todd has his fans. Barbara Gordon has their fans. Damian Wayne has his fans, and we talked about Teen Titans earlier. Rumors that he may be kind of the pseudo leader of the Teen Titans. Like I think to advance the Batman world so far, just from the beginning, I was very much in favor of. I didn't like the age gap, but besides that, I was in favor of everything and the choice of Robin. Besides that, I was totally in favor of that. If you start saying, okay, we're gonna go to the Batman, well, I feel like now we're back to its infantile stage. It's like, all right, where are we gonna get Dick Grayson? Is he a teenager or a kid? All right, when are we gonna introduce, the fact that Jim Gordon has a daughter? How old is she? Like, it just puts us so far back, and I'm just like, I don't want to start from the beginning. I do. If Superman is just like in this universe, we're just moving forward. Like, let's please just move forward with everybody else. So like I love what Matt Reeves has done. I want him to continue, but I personally I'm not for putting him into
But
the
it's like we
universe.
talked about. I in the moment when the DCU was being crafted, I agree. I agreed. I was like, you know, like you said, the Batman had just come out. It was like, it was great. It was his own thing. But at the same time, like you said, it was a younger Batman and all that, and there's certain things you're just not going to be able to do. But at this point, I mean, again, how much time has passed? I mean, no time passed from that to Penguin, allegedly, apparently. But but by the time we get to Batman Part 2, like we said, he's going to be 40. So now the idea of him having a son, Damian Wayne, is like, now Damian Wayne can't be your first Robin, so how much time has passed over, all that, has to be settled away. But it's a little more believable now. Now, the character, even if Robin Pattinson's 41, the character, he doesn't look that old, right? So the character could still be 34 or something like that in World.
Yeah.
But it's what we've talked about at a time wasn't believable. It was like the idea that you're going to have Damian Wayne, Robert Pattinson, just doesn't make any sense. Now it's like I've advocated, I don't want a new Batman. Like, I don't want a new actor, rather, as Batman. My idea would have been Christian Bale or somebody like that. But if you can't get somebody like Christian Bale to come back, I would have advocated for like Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he would have been great. He's like 40 right now, so he's a little bit younger, but it's old enough that in theory he could have had a kid. So to me, that Pattinson now is getting to that point where it's becoming believable.
Yeah, I'm of the opposite opinion. I prefer.
I know you do.
This. Yeah, I prefer this Batman to be in this DCU.
Right.
I think I just like it when there's I just like seeing one, just having one Batman, and specifically the better Batman, because I would, whoever this other Batman is that Muschietti would be making that's quite a mountain to try to climb.
Right.
I want the better Batman to be in the main universe. I feel like having a Batman that's like a lackluster Batman, or a Batman that's obviously inferior to this other Batman.
Number 2.
Yeah, like a number two Batman.
Yeah.
In the movies. He's not even like, oh, this one's on TV. They're both in the movies. But this movie one is just better. And this movie Gotham.
So I don't know about you, EJ.
Than this other Gotham. I think that would just I agree
with your latter point that Gotham is going to be tough to top that. I don't know if they took a real swing with this second Batman, I don't know if it'd be impossible to make a Batman that's just as good, if not better, than Robert Pattinson.
I agree. I think Pattinson. I think Pattinson is good. Do I think he's like amazing or the greatest?
Or do I think he's the picture perfect esque Batman? This is Bruce Wayne.
So
could he evolve into that in the second movie? That we all speculated at a time. Like, this could be Bruce Wayne kind of developing his persona and all that. But the Batman we saw in that really wasn't that.
I'll say, and it isn't even necessarily.
He's all in the shadows. He's all, he's an edgelord. He's an emo Batman.
I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a Pattinson thing specifically.
Right.
Okay.
I do think Pattinson was the perfect Batman for the world that Reeves created.
I mean, you called the second guy lackluster. You were like, I don't want a lackluster Batman next to Robert Pattinson.
He might be lackluster. He might be lackluster in comparison.
Right.
And this is a great Batman. I'm going to be very honest.
I
love everything from the design head to toe.
Right.
The Batmobile, the devices.
Right.
For sure.
I mean, it would be hard.
Whatchamacallit,
it'd be difficult.
Andy Serkis was great as Alfred, right? They did a good job with the universe.
Serkis was good, and even the Penguin show we just got,
Penguin show that took it over the top.
That's where I
did.
Yeah,
I'm like, this world, everything that Reeves is doing right now with the Batman himself, which I think again he just fits like a glove in the world that he's created.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, love it, and then everything else in the world,
now,
just the world itself.
I talk about this.
Like,
I talk about this actor.
I want this.
I talk about this actor a lot when it comes to X-Men, but there was a lot of speculation that because he followed Andy Muschietti on Twitter or on Instagram rather, that Glenn Powell could be in the mix to play Bruce Wayne, right? And I don't think it's necessarily the best fit, but if you are going for somebody that is going to be vastly different than Robert Pattinson, but has some own cachet in of himself, I don't think that's smart personally to bring in another high profile actor. That even the Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Jake Gyllenhaal. That's either
I would say even with Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I wouldn't go in that direction. I'd bring in Christian Bale, or I'd bring in
Right.
Ben Affleck. I bring Ben Affleck back, but
Ben Affleck would rather.
yeah, I don't think he would do it. But
He'd rather give up Dunkin' Donuts than come back to be Batman.
so it's like, so for me, I don't know if it makes sense to bring in another high profile actor, which is probably what you'll do. That's the only way you're competing with Robert Pattinson, I think. Like, I mean, you can cast some no name guy and they could be really good, but they just won't have the cachet or the star power to vault the Batman. Mm-hmm. But if you bring in somebody that's got their own cachet, like Robert Pattinson had when he got casted, I think you could compete. It just has to be very different, and that's the thing with like someone like Glenn Powell. Gyllenhaal, I think, would be very similar in some ways, but you can still write him differently. But if you did Powell, then like this is more of a Keaton.
The only thing I think
a Val Kilmer type Batman.
the only thing I think that they could do that could just be better is, I guess, if he had much more like tech, maybe if he was like more, he used more of his like science-y, because this Batman is the most detective Batman I think I've seen.
Right.
He's practically using detective mode when he was looking at all the Riddler things.
Yeah.
I mean, he is one of the most brutal Batmen we've seen, I think, and with how brutal he was.
The most brutal is Ben Affleck, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But like, I don't know. I mean, he could be. I mean, whoever this other Batman is can be great, but I'm just as in its totality,
I think for me, the Batman I was looking for, based on the movie they were telling me that Brave and the Bold was going to be, was I wanted to see basically Kevin Conroy come to live action. That's essentially, I think, what I feel like. I think a lot of I was looking for.
Right.
Like that. That's the version that I think. I think we were looking for. I think that's a version that's very inspired by and in some ways this movie is inspired by that too. But like that noir version, but there's also a little more. Like he's more. I don't know. He's not definitely not as emo for sure. He's a little more stately.
Yes.
Like a little more kind of like put together. I think as
regal,
as both Bruce and as Batman. Like I don't know if I necessarily like this Batman should not be like in like, we know Batman's kind of a man in crisis. The fact that he's like doing this shows kind of his mental illness probably. But like that version of Batman is not a man in crisis. He's very kind of like in tune with like who he is both as Bruce and as Batman. I don't know if we've ever really gotten that version. Really, maybe honestly, the closest probably is probably 89. No, I was gonna say 89. 89 and Batman Returns, the shirt I'm actually wearing, by the way, for those who may not know. Like that version, that Michael Keaton version, is probably the closest to that. I think I wanted to see maybe kind of an updated version of that in this next one. And what I will say is, look, I don't know what's going on with the Brave and the Bold, but they gotta figure this out. Like, again, like to being the point where the director's like, I don't know what's going on, especially when James Gunn has bigged up Andy Muschietti so much. He tried to tell us that this Flash movie was good when a lot of us did not feel it was. And then you put him on this movie kind of on the strength of a early Batman scene in that Flash movie, and we kind of were like, okay, we'll go along with this. Now he doesn't know when that movie's coming out. That they gotta figure that out. If Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves aren't coming over, then we need to have more confidence in what's going on.
The last thing I'll say real quick is I'm disappointed in James Gunn because his big thing has been like, we won't announce things at DC until they're done. Yeah. And we're going to take our time with projects and we're not going to rush anything. And sure, they haven't rushed this thing for sure, but like
no one can accuse them of rushing this thing. That's for sure.
No one can accuse them of rushing anything, know. But when it comes to like Brave and the Bold, I'm like, you had this grandiose plan allegedly, and now it's just like totally in flux. He said, "Oh, it hasn't been delayed." Then why did you announce it? If you announced it knowing it was going to come out in 2030, like why would you have done that? Like I don't. And then
I'll be honest, and some people have said this, Kendall. I am starting to wonder. That's the last thing I want to say on this too. I was starting to wonder if that slate that came out that was a big push from Zaslav and Warner to have to do that, because
Right.
that is feeling like a mistake today, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And look, we were saying that, right? Like we were saying that, but we were at the time
Yeah, because having a slate contradicts
right.
what
We
he was
were
saying
excited about that concept, right? When he kept saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a slate in January," and we were like, "Dog, it's or December."
Yeah,
we were like, "Oh,
we were surprised. We're like, you just got this job, and
yeah." I'm like, "You got like 5 days left to
Right.
announce the slate before you're lying to us," and then he
Right.
came out with it. Like it. It was exciting to get all this stuff, but because of the way he had been talking, we were like, "Well, we got to believe him at face value. This stuff is coming out." You know me; I'm the biggest skeptic with all these movies, but particularly with DC. That when
Yep.
you announce 10 projects, I'm like, only 3 of them are coming out. You know,
Yeah.
that's just historically where I've been trained to figure out when it comes to that studio. You know, there's also a part of me that wonders what is like how much of James Gunn. Again, we're about to talk about Superman, but how much of James Gunn's own job security is riding on the Superman, right? Like we're talking about any of these projects, like the Batman will be fine because that's got nothing to do with James Gunn. Maybe that's part of my Matt Reeves is like I don't need to have James Gunn on my to be riding his sails, the wind of his sails, because
Right. Sure.
you know who knows if the Superman movie's any good, and if the Superman movie's not good, as we say, you don't really have a world.
Yeah.
And does that give them time to pivot? You know, if you're Warner.
Let's talk about that. So, speaking of the Superman movie, so there have been early test screenings of James Gunn's Superman that have reportedly been underwhelming. So, speaking on the Hot Mic podcast, insider Jeff Snyder says he knows people who were at one screening and said this quote: "The buzz is not good. I'm hearing bad things. I'm hearing you should be worried things. It sounds like James Gunn is aware of some of the feedback." John Roca was also on this podcast as well. He said, someone who has seen Superman told me it has a tone of the first Avenger movie and the Mummy films. They said Nicholas Hoult is the standout and the film is, quote, decent. But a large chunk of the film was unfinished with only a third of the film's visual effects done. Now, he went on to say that that person said that the movie should be received well enough to continue Gunn's DCU. That's just the opinion of one person. Now, to be fair, comicbookmovie.com also had their own people, their own sources who said they say the opposite. They said that they watched the movie and they said the movie was really good, and they kind of compared it to Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of level of good. But this was the reporting that kind of was really dominant on the internet. This idea that there were these early test screenings and that they did not go well. And James Gunn initially said there were going to kind of be no reshoots or no anything. There are now reshoots happening. Now he is downplaying the fact that they're not reshooting scenes and changing story, but the words that maybe that's not the case, and that there are reshooting things and are changing story because the test screens haven't worked out or things that people are concerned about. I ask you, Kendall, what is your level of concern after hearing this feedback about some poor test screenings for Superman?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say my concern level is about an 8. You know,
That's high.
8 might be high. I mean,
that's very high.
Like, you know,
so you're concerned.
I'm concerned, man. Like, you know, and EJ, you remember we were at the Creature Commandos panel at New York Comic Con, and they, you know, Josh Horowitz, you know, asked, James Gunn about the Superman movie, how it's coming along, and his response, you know, we all thought he was gonna be like, "Yeah, it's coming along great. Like, it's, you know, so we think we have a fantastic movie on our hands." Blah blah blah. His response is, "Look, I mean, you know, we have a movie. We finally have a movie." I'm like, "That's it? We got a movie." I mean, you know, and you know, I saw the trailer and I've seen some of this stuff, and I'm like, I mean, look, they've got a movie. They've got one, you know, and what's the state of the movie is the question, you know, and what? Yeah, honestly, right? Shout out to that Plankton. I think we're in a situation where, again, a lot is riding on this movie, and you know, part of Jeff Snyder's been taking a lot of heat because there are people that feel like he's just upset that he's lost some access or he hasn't been invited to some of these premieres and stuff. And his thing is like, look, I just report what I'm being told. He's like, if you don't believe me, believe the Hollywood Reporter. Like the Hollywood Reporter put in their article that, you know, they had heard. He's like, look, they reported there was a screening. Yep. And they said they're like, although we won't share the reaction to the screening, that'll stay with us to the in the Fortress of Solitude is what they said.
Yeah,
which was like his thing is like if it was so great, why wouldn't they say it?
and
Like
they also said in that same article, we won't say what's happening, but also there are additional shooting that's happening.
Yes, so, but there will be more.
Which, again, as we have told you guys, and I've told our
read between the lines.
I told our listeners a million times, and our viewers, people who watch this on YouTube, shout out to people who watch this on YouTube, and who have watched this on Twitter. Can't be on Twitter anymore because that idiot Elon Musk doesn't allow you to be live unless you're paying for it. Read between the lines these articles, and that a lot of times there's the answers to your questions are literally in these articles, and who is saying things and what they're saying is right there, even if they don't say it. To say that we can't tell you what's happening, but there's shooting being done, tells you exactly what they are being told, which is that it's not good.
Yes. And so that's why my concern level is high. Because of what's at stake with this movie, I didn't love the trailer. I thought it was fine. Like, I think it ultimately was a win for them in terms of how it was perceived.
Narrowly, I think it was a win.
Yeah, like it was a win. That's the job of a trailer, is get people want to see the movie, right? Yep. And they did their job. I didn't necessarily see a great movie in that trailer. Doesn't mean it won't be great. I just didn't see it in that trailer. So for me, yes, I can't say anything but my concern level is high, because again, what this movie represents, what I've seen, and now when you start hearing that there are screenings it's not being perceived well, I'm like, sometimes when my eyes tell me one thing, and then the reports tell me the same thing, if it looks like a walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's not a damn mongoose. That's the situation.
I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, no, kind of. In terms of concern for me, like I would say in reaction to these press screenings, I'm at maybe a 6. Could there be something to it? Yeah. They could be like, yeah, it's a terrible movie and it's going to be terrible when it comes out. But I think we've seen, I don't know. I think it's hard for me to go too crazy over the press screenings. Like I have to see the movie. I have to see the finished product. As the thing showed, a lot of the movie is like unfinished. So I'm just like, I have to see what it looks like, finished, completed, before I come to any conclusion or make any judgment. I do agree with you, Kendall. I thought the trailer was fine as well as a teaser. That's very much what it felt like to me. It didn't didn't have me crying or anything like that. And, some people react, on the internet, which, no shade to that, if you're a Superman fan, but it definitely didn't. I saw it. I was like, okay, so, they're trying to do Superman. All right. They showed characters that I knew would be in the movie. So I have to see more, things with dialogue, scenes, maybe some action, things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this isn't a good sign for sure, but I'm not like jumping off the roof or anything like that. We gotta wait and see what the movie, what James Gunn's finished product is, before we make any kind of judgment. So I would hope that the team that worked on the movie also isn't in total panic mode, because I don't think that helps anything. It's James Gunn's vision for Superman. Let him make the finished product or release it to the public, make whatever changes he's got to make. All in all, he's a good filmmaker.
Yes.
I haven't seen any bad movies from him yet.
Did you see Brightburn?
I did see Brightburn. and I'm not a horror person, so that's why I can't really. But it was a grotesque movie, but I wouldn't say it was like trash or anything. I mean, I don't know.
I've never seen it.
But
I haven't seen what people have said online.
But yeah, I haven't seen any bad movies from Gunn. If I'm being honest, it would surprise me if this was like a trash movie. I would think this would be at least a good movie, to be honest. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to put my concern level, I think I'd be probably sandwiched right between you guys there with a 7. I think it's because this is surprising to me. And look, I think there are a lot of games that are played in the Hollywood atmosphere. I think I'd be naive not to mention that before I continue. But I think the trailer didn't show us a lot. Let's be clear. It showed us cool shots, cool moments, things that I think got people excited. I loved the trailer. I thought the trailer was awesome. For what it was, of course. It was not, they didn't show us a lot. For what they showed us, I was like, this looks really good. So to come off that trailer and hear that this movie has a lot of issues, there are a lot of concerns with it, that was surprising because kind of what Shamari said, like, yes, I did not see Brightburn, but I think when we see James Gunn films, there's a certain level of like, this is a certain level I kind of expected to be at. Like, I know the best it could be at, which is probably Guardians 1. Um,
Or
I know
three.
what,
I mean, I
yeah,
like
or 3. Yeah, they're both really high end.
Mhm.
And I know the
You
worst
see the
it could
Suicide
be at,
Squad.
which to me is probably Guardians 2, really. I mean,
Yeah.
well, maybe Brightburn. I didn't see Brightburn. But like I'm thinking about movies in terms of like PG-13 kind of, you know, uh
right.
mainstream kind of films.
Yes.
Big studio films. I'm thinking like probably Guardians 2, somewhere in between there, and I think he could do if it's something in between that, it's probably something like the Suicide Squad. I feel like I kind of know what to expect from James Gunn films. And I think you could probably add Peacemaker also on that very high end. That's on a film, but in terms of how good in terms of the writing, the story is, and things of that nature. Like, so I kind of feel like I have a good feel for what I'm getting when James Gunn's making a film. So to hear this movie has all these issues and like has a lot to be concerned about, that just stuns me because I'm like, I feel like James Gunn doesn't do haphazard work. So if they're telling me this movie is like maybe legitimately bad, that would surprise me. So that's why my level is at a 7 because I was stunned to hear that the test screens didn't go that well. Now I will then pull myself back and say I think any story regarding how a Superman movie is being received, I just think is going to be very loaded because of just the history we have with this character and with this IP over the last, I guess, 15 years or how whenever Man of Steel came out. It just feels like for whatever reason, there are folks who are in their camps about what Superman should or should not be, and there's a massive. Shamari kind of looking right at Shamari there. And to be fair, I feel like I mean, this show. I think we have differing views, but I think
We're all fair.
there's no toxicity at all in
Yeah,
this
I was gonna say I've
podcast.
been the most pro
In this,
Superman person on this show.
yeah, and there's no toxicity at all, and no like beef in this room. But I mean, on the outside, and I think in terms of like the word that gets out and the engagement that people are getting by saying it's either good or bad, there are agendas out there, and I think for me, I take kind of every reaction a little bit with some grain of salt because I'm like, I hate to say it, but it's all right. Well, like, are you someone who is like still like a Cavill acolyte or a Snyder
Yes.
acolyte? And I hate to view it like that. I just don't feel like I have a choice because of this. It's no longer just the internet folks that are doing this. It's like people in the industry who are like this as well. So I hear people saying, "Why I didn't like or have these issues." I'm like, part of me like they can't say why because they don't want to spoil it. So I respect that, and I don't want them to tell me why. My answer is part of me's okay. I'm concerned. Whereas like, why don't you think this is good? Like what aspects of it
So
do you not like? 'Cause what I learned is that like how people view Superman are like there's just very little consensus in terms of what makes Superman great to people, and I don't want what other folks think is great for Superman to
right.
influence what I think I want from Superman. So that's
So my
why that's the thing that's keeping me from going higher because otherwise my concern would be very high.
my question
Yeah.
to you guys, I was just gonna ask, what constitutes one? Two questions, both kind of the same, but one is what constitutes a disaster for DC with this movie, and two, is it worse that if this movie is like obviously look they can't make like Fantastic Four 2015, but is it worse? Is it worse if this movie's bad enough and does poor enough that like they can't continue with this world, but they can but they can pivot, or is it worse if this movie's like okay and like they just kind of continue with this in this in this world of mediocrity for 6 years. Like,
I don't think that they could have a situation where this movie is so bad that they have to pivot again and fire James Gunn and do something else.
right.
That to
They
me is
need this movie to be good enough to make another movie.
that's a non-starter. If that happens, this is I mean DC's always gonna and Warner Bros. Always gonna try and make the stuff because there's too much IP and too much money potentially made to not keep trying. But that would be the utmost disaster because now your future earnings could be permanently damaged in regards to like people wanting to be invested in the movies you make. They already are the studio that makes the bad superhero movies. That's how people view them, general public.
Right.
Whether people, DC fans, want to believe it or not, that's just a fact. I talk to people all the time who don't follow stuff nearly as close as I, and that's what they think of it as. So you're already that. If you try your second attempt at this and it goes that badly again on first rip, then yeah, like I don't think you could ever repair from that. Could you go on and make other good movies? Sure, they literally did it last time. I just don't think that will ever. They're never getting that Marvel bag that they think is out there is just never ever going to happen. So that I think is the word. They'd rather this be okay. This wasn't great, but we can build on this and we can keep it moving with this world. That's what they need to happen. They cannot have an absolute complete dud.
In today's day and age, you could probably it's going to be hard for it to be so bad that nobody likes it just because we live in this world where there's people that are huge fans of this movie already and they haven't even seen it. Right? There's people that are like, this
people make up their mind for their
movie ever made.
Yeah.
This is the greatest movie ever made, Superman. Sure. 2025. And it's like, how do you know? It's like because the trailer. You can see the trailer. You can see the set photos. The greatest movie ever made. Like we live in these people in this world where you got these camps that are set up. Where it was happening with Snyder too, right? Before we even saw BVS, it was like, this is the best Justice League we've ever got. It's like, well, it's the only Justice League we've ever got. So it's a situation where. If this movie, like on Rotten Tomatoes, for example, this movie's 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's certified rotten, but that's enough for them to continue making these movies, right? Because there's gonna be enough people. That's 50% of people. That's not the audience score, and in this world, the audience score will probably be higher than that, and you'll be able to continue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really think the critic score matters too much in this situation. I think what matters more is audience score and box office. That's what's going to matter. And I think if the audience score is above, I say probably above 65, I'll probably say. Then I think at that point, I think he's at least cleared that hurdle of this isn't just trash. This isn't so bad. I don't know what I love Man of Steel. I don't know what that is on Rotten Tomatoes.
But I believe it's living in the 50s, I believe.
So I guess my thing would be, what happens if this is the Sonyverse, right? Like, what happens? Now, that seems unbelievable, right? We're talking about James Gunn.
That feels like a level that I can't see happening. But
now, I don't know if it'll be Craven and Madam Web.
When you said Sonyverse, I immediately jumped to Madam Web.
What if it's Venom?
See that.
What if it's 25% on Rotten Tomatoes critics? People say this thing's a whack movie, but it's got a pretty good audience score, just like Venom had, and we kind of that's gonna be tough, man.
I'll be real. I mean, look, Man of Steel right now is at 57 on Rotten Tomatoes critic score. Is at 75% audience score with over 25.
If it can match that, that's a
250,000 ratings. Well, I'm gonna say
I would think that's a win.
I don't know if they can survive that. I'm gonna be real because I watched what happened. I watched what happened when this happened. When Man of Steel was at 57 and a 75% audience on Rotten Tomatoes. Zack
we got
Snyder's,
10 years of movies.
No. So let me rephrase that. I'm not saying that they can't do movies. I'm saying can they actually do a universe that has any viability and any future? That I don't know is possible at that level of for lack of a better term, partisanship. This idea that 25% of people who are just average fans will be like, I hate this movie for a lot of reasons. And then the critics, you don't have the support of critics. I don't think, and Man of Steel did not do great in terms of box office numbers in this era of superhero movies, that era of superhero movies, in terms of what they were doing at that time. I don't think, that's why I think Shamari hit the nail on the head where I don't think beyond beyond audience score, I think the box office is actually really going to determine a lot of this. Like, and I think it sounds. I mean, they're off to a good start. I don't know.
I've got
I don't think this word about these test screenings is going to like do anything for box office yet. But
I've
the
got a box
trailer
office goal
trailer did
prediction.
everything. I think the trailer did more than enough to get people to like feel excited about this movie. But they got to do well in the box office to me to have this work out. But if they're at a 57 to 75 kind of split on a score on Rotten Tomatoes in terms of what people are feeling about this, that's going to make James Gunn's life very difficult because Zack Snyder came out with an absolute haymaker with that Wonder Woman, and he still couldn't shake that. He still couldn't shake this beginning. And I feel like for James Gunn, he better be careful. If he starts like his world off like this, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I got a box office prediction that I'll give in our last segment, but
Okay, yeah, because let's get to that because we're at the end of the year, and we want to make sure we give bold predictions. We're gonna do a lot of different stuff here, but starting off especially with bold predictions for 2025, the superhero movie television world. So 2024 is a big year. I want to get before we go back and turn the page. As we turn the page, we'll go back in a second. But I want to ask Kendall first, obviously, because he has a bold prediction right off the bat right here. What's a bold prediction you have here for 2025?
So a bold prediction I've got is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Fantastic Four movie is coming out July 11th
Yes.
of 2025, I believe, and then Superman is coming out the 25th of July. Or maybe I got that mixed up.
I think you might have mixed it up. I think Superman. I think
Superman is July 11th.
Superman is 11th.
Yeah.
I think Fantastic Four smokes Superman in the box office. I think it smokes it. I don't know the exact number, but I think they laugh them. In the same way, Sonic 3 came out the same weekend as Mufasa and doubled them up.
Yeah,
got 60 million. Mufasa only got 30. I think
give me a number. What is the first weekend for Superman? What is first?
That's what
I mean. Give me a difference. What's the difference? Like right there, that's a double up difference right there.
Right,
but like
I'm not saying. I don't know if Superman's gonna get 40 and it was going to get 120.
Smoke. That's not fantastic.
Because also there's
Superman
the long term thing too.
That's
right?
not smoking for me. Okay, so
yeah.
All right,
and
so
they're at least like 2 weeks apart.
So I think Fantastic Four comes close. I don't know if it'll get to $1 billion. I don't know. That's so tough. There's not many $1 billion movies nowadays. But if Fantastic Four gets to 800, 750 worldwide, I think Superman gets to around 500 million.
500 million is a complete catastrophe. Let me just make that clear. In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's half of what they should probably get. But if this movie's not as good as we think, I don't know if it gets there to like $1 billion. Because that's what you need. You need a good movie to get to that standpoint. We don't need a good movie, but it would help. We're already in kind of an apathetic superhero movie environment. I'm not sure if Cap and Thunderbolts is going to help the situation, but I think Fantastic Four will be different enough that I think it'll cut through that. I don't know if Superman will be. That's my bold prediction.
All right.
Do you guys think Fantastic Four will do better than Superman? I guess
I don't think so.
Interesting.
I don't think so. I think that the Fantastic Four brand needs a lot of rehab.
Yeah.
And we right now, I mean, I guess it sounds like we'll probably get something Super Bowl time. It seems like maybe something in January even, but we've got nothing still. Like this movie's coming out in July. We have nothing.
Yeah,
really
we got like the leak stuff that we've
leak stuff that only we've watched. No one outside of again.
We were definitely there.
This circle. No one outside of like this circle has watched that leak thing. So like to me, there's no real buzz. So Superman buzz, I think, has been palpable for a long time. I would that would surprise me. I'm not gonna say stunned. I just stunned earlier. Maybe not stunned. It would be stunned if it smoked it. I would be if
Yeah,
it beat it. I would be a little surprised. But if Superman does have the issues and Fantastic Four is really good, then at the end of the day, I think quality wins out when you have Goliath versus Goliath.
Yeah, it would that would shock me as well. I don't believe that that's going to happen. I think that Superman is going to do better than Fantastic Four. I think Superman is going to be a good movie. I think Fantastic Four, EJ, you just mentioned how the last few Fantastic Four movies we've gotten haven't been great, or they've actually been terrible, to be honest. So the brand of the Fantastic Four isn't exactly there. The Fantastic Four we've gotten in the MCU,
we're gonna get Downey as Doom, man.
the Fantastic Four we've gotten in the MCU so far has been a troll Fantastic Four with Krasinski, and he's getting all destroyed and killed and whatnot. It's been a joke. They've just been making them out to be a joke this entire time. So no, I don't think that. I think Feige has created a situation with not even needing to, but now he's made a situation where it's like some kind of uphill battle against like himself. It's just ridiculous.
That Super Bowl trailer, I'm telling you, that thing's gonna go.
We have to see.
Go white hot.
So yeah, we have to see what it looks like. And I'm not even saying the movie's gonna be bad. It's John Watts. He knows what he's doing. We're watching.
Or now with Matt Shackman.
Or Shackman. Yeah, Shackman. He knows what he's doing. He's not someone that doesn't know what he's doing. So we'll see. We have to see what the finished product looks like. For my bold prediction, and it's crazy that this even has to be a bold prediction at this point. Again, Marvel. My bold prediction is that Captain America is very good.
Wow, that is a bold prediction, man.
That the movie, I know there's a lot of like, oh my god, this looks awful.
Right, a lot of anxiety with the,
all I see is Red Hulk. Why do they keep showing Harrison Ford?
A lot of reshoots.
All these reshoots, and why does Mackie look weird? And why does he have two different suits and this and that? If they stick to the Winter Soldier vibe, the show could be good. If it's grounded, if it's a Cap story, I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I love Falcon.
That's a very underrated Disney Plus. I liked it. I liked the episodes. I liked the story. I like Mackie as Falcon. I like Mackie as Cap. I don't think he's bad in either role. If he plays the role, if the story's good, if Red Hulk isn't like bad, and this whatever they do with the leader is passable. He could be. I don't know if he's emo. Like okay, so like I'm down.
That's a high bar in Marvel terms. If he's emo, if he's Red Skull, if he's Thanos. The middle ground is like if he's Ghost. No, that's bottom of the barrel. But
yeah, I was gonna say
leader definitely gives me anxiety as a villain.
Yeah, leader's the only thing. He's the only. As long as they don't like just totally make him like Parallax or something like that.
Right. Tim Blake Nelson. I mean, look, he's a great actor. We've seen him in a lot of different things. Obviously, Watchmen at Looking Glass, he was awesome. They kind of lucked into that casting that he happened to play him in Incredible Hulk, and they teased it in Incredible Hulk, so they didn't even have to go too far out to find somebody to play the leader.
And I also think Brave New World being very good could be good for Fantastic Four as well. I think that'll help.
That's a very important aspect of it. I know the EJs, you've started to come a little bit around to the Thunderbolts. Yes. That I'm still more interested in Cap, but in terms of reception, I like, if we're talking Rotten Tomatoes, I'm starting to feel like this is going to be like a 55-60%, which we know in Marvel world, that's bottom of the barrel. Like it's not quite. I mean, Eternals, what does that end up at? Like 30, which still feels too low, right? Like I didn't love Eternals. You guys know me. We could, like you said, we could spend a whole hour on that. I didn't love the movie, but 30, I was like, damn, that's low for Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp is, Ant-Man and those movies are like in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, not Ant-Man 1, but like Ant-Man 3 is in like the 50s. I'm like, how did that movie that much better? But in the case of Cap, I don't know. I see a movie that's going to settle around the 50s probably. And that's probably a win, based off what we're hearing and what the anxiety that people have. But you watch the trailers, and I think the trailers have been pretty good. But that's another one where I'm like, if you told me this movie was an absolute mess, I would absolutely believe you, because the trailers have there's nothing cohesive about it. It
I
just
would
looks like
agree.
a lot of action
It was
shots.
it was just a bunch of shots.
You know, yeah, I see John Carlos blowing up buildings and stuff. I'm like, is he the villain of the movie? There's another guy that's the villain, and it's not Red Hulk, and it's not John Carlos Esposito.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a bold prediction, Sham, because things the more promotional stuff comes out, the more I'm just like,
and I mean, Marvel hasn't been hitting lately.
Yeah, I'm just not feeling it right now. That would be something if it turns out to be pretty good. So my bold prediction is just like we had X-Men 97 kind of become, though I will say Penguin really came in late and maybe took the title, but X-Men 97, I think for so much of this year was the superhero content that mattered this year. I think just like that, next year it's going to be a TV series that's going to be the best thing that comes out of any superhero content.
We going back to the OG.
We're going back to the OG, Kendall. Daredevil Born Again will be the best superhero content thing we see next year. Better than Fantastic Four, better than Superman, better than any other show that may come out. Definitely better than Thunderbolts and Captain America, Brave New World. And I think a lot of the conversation will be, how do we expand on this universe being an even larger part of the MCU? I think we're going to get everything we want in regards to Jessica Jones coming back. I think there's a chance maybe Mike Coulter comes back. I think it's right now kind of like it's kind of the forgotten storyline, I feel like, of 2025, which is so crazy because of how much conversation there was to try to bring back Daredevil. And then when it was brought back, we had all these different castings and no Foggy, no Karen, how that just sent people just in a rage. And then how all these characters have been returned, some characters recasted. I was reminded just now looking it up how we're back to the old Vanessa. They got rid of the new Vanessa. Like, I think we forgot how much that show just really, the original Netflix show, was, just so paramount to our conversations regarding like what was happening in the superhero world. I think we get back to that this year. I think in many ways, the way X-Men 97 kind of just engulfed everything in the conversation and became like everything regarding the X-Men. How do they continue moving forward with the X-Men? Do these characters in some way play into the MCU? All those conversations that happen, I think the same thing happens with Daredevil Born Again. I think we're going to see another knockout season. I think the fact that now we're in the MCU, we may even get a little bit, we'll get that hyper realism that we had from the original show, but we may get even a little more superhero-y kind of things, maybe a bullseye costume, maybe little things that make us kind of feel even more so like we're really in the Marvel cinematic universe, to kind of really bring together all the best parts that we liked about the Netflix, plus what we know Marvel Studios can do with the expanded universe. And that's my bold prediction, that the best thing that comes out next year is Daredevil Born Again.
All right. And I don't know. I don't even know if that's that bold. I mean, Daredevil was that good. Daredevil. I mean, and it is a bold prediction because there's a lot of like
big movies,
a lot of big budget movies.
There's massive movies coming out next year.
But you could argue, you can make the case that Daredevil is better than a lot of those other franchises.
From an expectation of quality. I think it would not be surprising if Daredevil is better. But go on top of what EJ is saying is that not only will it be better, but like the conversation around it will be more important and be more impactful.
Yes.
That's true. Because I mean, what was the biggest? I mean, we'll do a year in review, I guess. But like, what was the biggest superhero movie or superhero? What was the biggest superhero movie that came out this year? It was Deadpool, right? Deadpool, Wolverine.
Yeah, Deadpool.
We could debate what was a bigger deal between Deadpool. I would say probably Deadpool, but you could debate it between Deadpool and X-Men 97 and Penguin. Like, Deadpool had more reach in part because it had Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, but like, it wasn't like it didn't blow X-Men 97 out of the water, which it probably should have given the amount of reach that it had.
Yeah, one's a cartoon.
And one's a cartoon, and one's got Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
Is a third installment of a massive franchise that now added Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
So the fact that it was even a competition is insane. And again, you look
Yeah.
forward to this year. There is no Deadpool Wolverine. Like we kind of knew coming into this year, there isn't not really that much to review for last year because we knew coming in it was like, yeah, the only thing we have is Deadpool and Wolverine. We spent a whole year being like, this is the only movie that's coming out. So buckle up. 2025 we'll have a lot of stuff, and then DC was like, no, you won't, because we're not coming out with Batman in 2025. But it does. It does feel like again X-Men made and in part because of Deadpool and Wolverine, the entire brand I think made the biggest mark on 2025 or 2024 rather. The Marvels was 2023, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That wasn't last year.
It was not like
that wasn't this year.
That wasn't this year, right?
Yeah, that was the end towards the end of 2023. That
was the end of 2023,
yeah,
right?
That was 2023.
So we were coming off of the Marvels and the whole Beast reveal.
Yes.
And then we came in and got Deadpool and Wolverine.
That was November. By the way, my really bold prediction is that I think we'll have another massive X-Men reveal in the Fantastic Four.
I thought about that too. I was like, are we going to get another mutant? But I
think we will.
I don't see it. I mean, we should. Again, I think Downey's going to show up. That's my guess. I think that'll be the big thing. But there's still a big void right now from a story perspective of how do we get from point A to point B, with point A being where we're at now and point B being Avengers Doomsday. How do we get there with like 3 movies? We got
there's no there's no runway right now. Yeah, right
there's
now.
No runway.
Yeah, there's nothing they've established because everything was about Kang. There's nothing they've established with anything they've done that ties in Doomsday yet. So you have to, with these 3 movies, find a way to get yourself there.
And I've read, again, it's all rumors, it's speculation. The Thunderbolts may be a big part of Doomsday, which I was like, that's a disaster if that's the case, in my mind. But again, like you said, maybe it'll wind up being good. But
I keep going back to that Thunderbolts title with that asterisk.
With the asterisk.
More like,
what
is this movie?
So, was it, some people speculating, are they the new Avengers, right? Like, maybe they're not. We thought maybe they're the Dark Avengers. Maybe they're the new Avengers. Who knows? But to me, that's a massive question that they have. And with Fantastic Four being obviously the biggest thing you've got, and maybe the last thing you've got before Doomsday in terms of movies, it would make sense if not only you use that to introduce maybe Doctor Doom, but also tie in another X-Men character. I just don't know if they've got enough time. They've got so much to do in that movie. I don't know if they got enough time to show, Professor X or something like that. But if they come from that world as well, that can make it make sense.
It's 2024. It's 2024 shout outs. I want to shout out, like what I just mentioned. I want to shout out Marvel Studios for X-Men 97. I can't remember something living up to the hype as well as X-Men 97. I mean, maybe like Endgame. Like, honestly, I'm trying to think of like other things that lived up to the hype that much. Endgame, No Way Home, Black Panther 1. That may have exceeded hype, to be honest. But where the bar was so super high, to the point where I don't know if really anyone thought that they could clear it. I don't think anyone thought they could clear it, like realistically. And for them to hit that mark, I think that was, like I said, in many ways, I thought it was the biggest storyline that happened in 2024. And I think it was not the tone setter, the tone changer rather, but I think it just stopped the bleeding for Marvel. I think Marvel was hemorrhaging blood. Like it was bad, I felt like. I think that just kind of just stopped the conversation, at least within like these circles. Like these circles, the superhero world, the people that are content creating about this stuff. I think there was nothing really you could say about Marvel for a good like several months because of just how amazing X-Men 97 was. The Mayo stuff and all stuff that happened, it actually didn't derail the conversation as much as it maybe could have, and maybe that's a shout out to Marvel and the Disney PR team being probably like the greatest at this kind of thing. But really, outside of that blip being a problem, it's again, I don't want to say it saved Marvel, but I just really felt like at a time when like they could not have gotten any more bad press, it just kind of stopped it for a while. So shout out to X-Men 97, I think is again maybe the biggest storyline we had this year. Sham, what do you have for a shout out for 2024?
Man, gotta shout out Penguin. Gotta shout out
Facts.
Reeves, Lauren LaFranc. You
Mm.
know, all the people that worked on that show. That was a massive, massive, massive highlight. And I knew it would be like somewhat of a highlight, but not as much of a highlight as it was. It very much exceeded my expectations. So I think Penguin was for me, that was definitely the surprise of this year, along with X-Men 97, which you just mentioned as well. So definitely got to give them a shout out.
Kendall, shout outs, highlights of 2024.
Shout out to the Deadpool and Wolverine team for sure. I mean, it's another movie that we had a lot of expectations for. We've talked about it a lot from a story perspective. They didn't meet every bar that we had set for them, but from just a vibe standpoint, like you said, just changing the culture at Marvel, that movie did a really good job of helping to improve the culture, improve the conversation surrounding them. It was not so much a DEFCON 5 conversation of, do we got to get rid of Feige? I mean, that was a conversation. I mean, Shamari, I don't know if Shamari's given up on that crusade just yet.
Oh, absolutely not.
But that was a conversation that we were having on this podcast quite a bit. That it's happened less in part because of things like X-Men 97
and and actually getting glimpses of X-Men now.
Right. I mean, we've seen X-Men not only, I mean, they've all been OGs, but not only in some alternate timeline, but I guess it's all been alternate timeline still, or universes, but we've seen them in the flesh, and it's not just there. Patrick Stewart, basically.
And they're not getting killed.
You're right, exactly.
In the same movie, like they're actually there.
So shout out in that direction. There's a lot of things I could do. Things that sometimes
we can just keep going. I mean, shout out to maybe the biggest casting news we had this year. We had a lot of casting news. The biggest of them all being Robert Downey Jr. being cast as Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
If you want to argue, I had to pick what was the biggest actual story this year, I think that's the biggest story without question. It lends to a zillion questions. I think you'll get a zillion different opinions from people about how they feel about this. It's weird. In some ways, it is the most safe and also most risky thing Marvel could have done. It's so bizarre, like how that worked.
Yes.
To go back to Robert Downey Jr., to put him in your next big Marvel movie is extremely safe. To say he's going to be Dr. Doom is extremely risky. And I don't know. I'm not ready to applaud Marvel for that yet because I tend to think it's rather foolish. I could be proven to be very wrong in that. But in terms of like that storyline and what happened in terms of shouting out big things from this year, that was the biggest casting news, and it was a shocker, right? I mean, we heard some of the rumors that he could be Dr. Doom. It didn't really make much sense when we heard them, so I think a lot of folks, and I think including me, I know for sure, didn't really take them all that seriously. I think I've said on the show I was not taking those rumors seriously, but it's reality. Robert Downey is playing Dr. Doom in Doomsday. Why that is, how that is, we still have no idea. But maybe we'll get more answers, as Kendall noted, when we see Fantastic Four.
Yeah, no. I mean, and there were some things that came out that were maybe more adjacent. I mean, Invincible came out, The Boys.
Shout out to Invincible, shout out to The Boys.
Shout out to The Boys. Very good season.
Another good movie that came out.
Shout out to Superman and Lois.
Superman and Lois, the whole Arrowverse.
Yeah, shout out to RIP to the Arrowverse. Yeah, I still got to get into Superman and Lois, but I mean, I've only heard amazing things, and it sounds like it was a really great send off.
Yeah, it's a very good show. The Arrowverse, man. I mean, we talk about a world. Shout out to Greg Berlanti.
Yeah, shout out to Berlanti.
And that entire team, and all the actors, because you want to talk about a world that was created that. It's like we laughed. We laughed when there were reports that Berlanti was contacted, or not that he was contacted. There were reports that Berlanti's agents were trying to get Berlanti in the mix to do Doomsday, and we were like, "What?" It was him. It was Noah Hawley. This was before we knew Doctor Doom was even involved in just Avengers 5.
Yeah.
But it was him. It was Noah Hawley, and it was like a couple other people. And it was like both of those names were weird. It was like Noah Hawley, his only connection to superhero movies is the Doom show he was making. This was before we knew Doom was in it. It was like, what?
Right.
So now we know why. But when it comes to Berlanti, we laughed at the time because it's like, what? You're gonna have Berlanti do the Avengers? But when you think about what we're getting and what they're trying to accomplish with trying to meld all these worlds together and all these different universes they've created and maybe make them into one, he was the first guy to accomplish that in a way that was almost seamless. How he took the Arrowverse, and obviously Flash was in that world, but then introduced Supergirl in a different world, and then brought in a Superman in that world. And then you also had characters like Black Lightning that were thrown in the mix, and Legends of Tomorrow were thrown in the mix. All these different things, to have them all going at the same time. Again, we joke a lot about, they gave him like $400 million, to do it. So I would do it too. And I think I could probably make a good world if you give me $400 million to do it.
While also running a bunch of other CW
yes.
shows.
I mean, very successful shows. Some of those shows more successful than the superhero shows he was making. He deserves a lot of credit, man. And pour one out to Berlanti for the world that was created, all the actors, writers, showrunners.
Yeah, a lot of his stuff kind of kept us going in terms of anything.
Yeah, because DC
any kind of visual, hero stuff, particularly on television, so that we're not just sitting around just waiting.
The Flash.
Movies.
We got Grant Gustin's Flash before we got Ezra Miller. There were a lot of these characters. Batwoman was another character I forgot to mention. Like, there were a lot of these characters that we got, and through a lot of these shows, we also got other characters, other DC heroes that would be either recurring characters in those shows, one-off villains that we got to see in live action that we've never seen before, right? Because of that show, because of Arrow and Flash being successful, we end up getting Gotham, right? Does Gotham get greenlit without Arrow and Flash? Who knows? But there's a lot of good stuff that came because of that. And obviously Smallville is the original nexus of these ideas, and they deserve a lot of credit as well. But to build off of that concept in a way that's created, not the first shared universe we had, obviously, because we had Marvel, but, the first one that we've had in television like that. I mean, it was incredibly successful.
Yeah. Greg's a pioneer.
Yeah, we're in a different era now of TV. A lot of the stuff that's going to come out is going to be maybe structured differently, right? I don't want to say it's definitely better quality, but it's structured differently in that in some ways will be better. But for what they were trying to accomplish, man, very successful run.
Yeah, Greg Berlanti's a pioneer. He's an icon, I think, in this world. So shout out to him. Shout out to the
now he's got a Scooby-Doo show coming out.
Creators and workers about, that should be cool too. Shout out to the people who worked on Superman and Lois for sure. A massive job in terms of just kind of wrapping up what was such an important part of people's lives for a long period of time. It's kind of laying out all the things that went with that. So totally agree. I want to shout out a show that I actually haven't really watched. I'll blame my fiance a little bit on this because she wants to watch it as well. We watched some episodes, but I haven't really gotten much into it. But shout out to Agatha All Along. That's a Marvel Disney Plus show, came out this year. I think was very well received by a lot of folks. Maybe gone a little under the radar because of just the way Marvel is right now, quite frankly. And I think Agatha All Along, in some ways, probably coming out at just the wrong time. Probably should have came out a year earlier, much closer to the show that is coming back from in WandaVision. But to get to see Catherine Hahn do her thing and a really strong cast do their thing for the parts I have seen. Shout out to Marvel for Agatha All Along. That was another big thing from this year. I mean, it was a strange year, I would say, guys. I feel like we didn't have a lot of movies. We had basically one movie. There were a lot of stories, a lot of rumors that we kind of had to lean on in terms of kind of just what was happening in this world. It felt like a transition year. And I think that we're going into 2025 and we will kind of really truly enter a new era, I think, whenever we get probably at least the beginning of the Avenger movies. But it feels like in some ways, I think, for just kind of like the superhero movie news world that we talk about, the world we live in, it feels like we're going to enter that new world in 2025. The world that includes kind of more what DCU is going to look like, more of what the future is with mutants, which I think will be a major storyline in 2025. Like I said, I think we'll have another, at least one, maybe even two more massive sightings in Marvel projects coming up this year. As we get closer, man, we're gonna get more details about Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, all these things that be coming out. We'll probably have a better idea of Spider-Man. One of my other bold predictions, I didn't want to repeat because I said it in the last show. I think that Spider-Man is coming home next year too. I really think that's going to happen as well. I think a lot of this crowing you're seeing from the Sony executive, something we didn't talk about today, but we could have, him complaining about the reason why Madam Web and Craven didn't do well was because the media had such bad press, and that was why. Like, those movies are actually good. Like, I can't speak for Craven. I only saw 8 minutes of it. I can't speak for Madam Web. I saw none of it. But every person I would trust in terms of an opinion about it, I don't know anyone who watched Craven, which says all you need to know there. But anyone I've seen that's talked about Madam Web has said it is hot garbage. It is one of the worst superhero movies
Yeah,
ever
it's
made.
terrible.
So I don't know what this game plan is. I think it sounds like a CEO trying to save his job. That's what I think a lot of this is. So I think another big thing we could be seeing is Spider-Man officially coming home in terms of him coming back to the Marvel Studios kind of property fully. And that would be something to follow as well. But like I said, I think we're entering a new era this upcoming year. I think we're going to see a landscape change a great deal. But I think it's been a great year for this podcast, a great year for us individually and collectively, and I'm excited for 2025. We're gonna have a lot of fun, cool stuff coming at you next year. But I think that's a good place to leave it for this episode of New Generation Hero Talk. I want to thank you guys so much for checking us out. Of course, if you like this episode, you can find all of our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Tune in, look for us, New Generation Podcast Network. Follow us on YouTube, New Generation Media, where you can see this podcast on a visual medium. Make sure you follow us individually on social media. I'm on Twitter, EJ_Stewart, Instagram, TikTok, actually EJ. Kendall's on Twitter, NewGen Ken. Shamari's on Instagram and Snapchat, MCSham22. This show also has a Twitter account at New Generation Pod, where you can find us there. We're also on Facebook, New Generation Media, New Generation Podcast Network. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. For Shamari, for Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.